Hey everyone, Metagross Freak here, and I've previously done a Claptrap and Wilhelm video based on the builds I'm planning on using. I don't know if I'm going to be using Athena now that Handsome Jack's, the doppelganger named, I think it's Timothy, has had his skill tree revealed. I don't know if I'm going to use Athena, but I really loved playing as Krieg, so I'm probably more likely to go into Athena than Nisha. In fact, I probably won't even do a video for Nisha. I might, though probably not going to even play her. So here we go. This is the build I'm planning on using if I play Athena. Obviously, you have to put a point in Kinetic Aspis. It's a shield that absorbs basically damage in 90 degrees in front of you. So, 45 degrees to your left, 45 degrees to your right. And then after the duration or it ends, or if you activate it early, you can throw the Aspis to make a giant explosion at whatever it hits, double the damage it took, and its cooldown's only 16 seconds, which is pretty neat. Sonic Storm is her elemental tree focusing on fire and electricity. Zyphos is her melee-based tree, and Phalanx is her. I guess you could say it's a tank tree, but really it's more this tree. It's more Phalanx boosts her shield, Zyphos boosts her sword, and Sonic Storm just makes her an elemental badass. I'm sure there will be people who go down the Sonic Storm tree and make it extremely powerful, and based on some playing around I have done with this tree over the last couple of days, it can get really scary. But with only 47 points to spend, you're really going to want to focus your points on something that, what you're going to be using more often. Excuse me. From the gameplay I've seen, fire is not as useful. It still does more damage to flush targets. However, people cannot be ignited in the vacuum. And from what I've seen, there's a lot of really good shock weapons. So if you're really into shock and you're not as big of a fan of melee, you might want to end up going down Sonic Storm. That being said, I'll be doing two different builds, both starting off with Phalanx and then going into Zyphos or going into Sonic Storm. So this is going to be a little bit longer than the previous videos. So first up we have Ephidos and Invictus. One increases the damage with your Aspis, and one increases movement speed and gun damage while holding Aspis. The movement speed and gun damage is pretty nice, I'm going to admit, especially if you're going to go down Zyphos, because you have Gun Kata, which increases your gun damage, and if you melee soon after shooting, you'll do bonus melee damage. So the fact that this just makes you do even more gun damage and improves their movement speed means you'll be doing lots of gun damage while you charge towards opponents to stab them in the face. However, for this build, the first one I'm going to do is going to be with Sonic Storm, so I'm going to go with Invictus because we want the shield to be doing more damage, especially since this is going to be more defense and elemental based rather than defense and melee. Next up we have Vanguard. Vanguard gives you and your friends health regeneration when the Aspis is active. Now, since it's been untested how much these ranks of regeneration are, I'm probably going to avoid it because chances are, similar to everything that was ranked in Borderlands 2, once you get to higher difficulties, this drastically drops off. Meanwhile, it's very good in normal mode. Hold the Line, however, will increase your active duration. At rank 5, increases by 5.5 seconds, which the original active duration was 11, bumping it up to 16.5. And since the cooldown is 16, you basically can have your Aspis out during half of the battle. Next we have Prismatic Aegis, which is a really cool ability. that lets you not only store damage, but all the damage types you absorb can be thrown back when you toss your Aspis. Normally your Aspis will just do, I believe it's explosive. Yeah, normally it just does explosive damage. However, let's say you're hit with a fire laser. Now when you throw the Aspis, it'll also deal fire, which is pretty dang cool. Clear is another tier, as a fourth tier one-pointer that basically, in addition to giving you a 40% damage bonus while in Fight for Your Life, can let you use the Aspis Explosion to second wind friends. This can be pretty good, and I might end up going into this. However, for the time being, since I'm only planning on doing this single player, since no one's hit me up about doing multiplayer in the future, I'm probably not going to use Clear for now. Especially since, based on what I've seen, Fight for Your Life isn't really that big of a deal in pre-sequel. I'm sure that in higher difficulties, like True Vault Hunter mode, and possibly an Ultimate Vault Hunter, having this bonus will be really nice, but for now I'm just going to ignore it, and maybe I'll go back to it if there's an extra point or two. There's also Stalwart, which lets your friends deal damage to your Aspis, which can help stack with Prismatic Aegis and hold the line. This can be pretty cool, and it also increases your maximum health. Our other option is United Front, allowing you to power your shields when you charge with the Aspis. So when you have your Aspis out, not only are you taking less damage, but the damage you take helps to charge your shield, which also has a larger capacity. I'm not sure how well shields are going to work in pre-sequel, but I remember in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode of Borderlands 2, shields are basically useless, and unless you have a Roid or a Nova, you're not really going to get much out of it. That being said, since again I'm not going to be really benefiting from the friend gun absorption, I'm going to put 5 points in United Front. Alright, for our Tier 5 skill we have Prepare for Glory, which taunts enemies with your Aspis, making them more likely to attack you, and for each enemy who attacks you when you have your Aspis out, you gain stacks of Prepare for Glory, which increases your gun damage. Stacks persist for a short duration after it's been thrown as well. I kind of like this, though based on my estimate, it's only going to be a 10% boost per stack, so if you're fighting a boss, you're not going to get very much of a bonus. Meanwhile, Return Fire has a chance for the Aspis to reflect bullets and lasers. It doesn't count for rockets, and it doesn't count for melee, but it's still pretty cool, especially since, when combined with United Front, you're charging your shield and absorbing elements, while also reflecting those elements back, potentially. At rank 5, the reflect chance is only 50%, but that's still 50% more likely of returning damage than, not having it at all. Lastly is Wrath of the Goddess, which basically just turns you into Captain America. I think this is a great skill, and anyone who's going to go down the phalanx tree and not stop at Prismatic Aegis, if you go below Prismatic Aegis, you kind of have to get Wrath of the Goddess. It's a really great ability, especially because if enemies are close enough, they'll all take damage from all the explosions. It can be really fun. So this is going to be, like I said, the first build is based more on the elemental, so I will go down Saronic Storm, but from what I've seen, it's not being widely used. That being said, you have to put your first 5 points into Maelstrom and Storm Weaving, kind of similar to Gage's Anarchy Tree, Ordered Chaos. Maelstrom deals bonus damage, it lets you deal bonus elemental damage when you gain stacks for dealing shock or incinerary, which is pretty cool. Storm Weaving, however, increases fire rate and elemental effect chance when you swap weapons. When combined, if you, say, have one good shock weapon and one good fire weapon, and you switch back and forth between these two, you can easily get up huge stacks of Storm Weaving and Maelstrom. Next is Gathering Tempest, which increases magazine size and reload speed, and Conduit, which lets you regenerate your shields when you have an Electrocute status out. Like I mentioned before, Electrocute seems to be fairly common, considering that you can't use a fire DOT in a vacuum. So I really like the idea of Conduit. However, having higher reload and magazine is nice, considering that we really don't need the shield recharge because we have United Front. That being said, we'll keep Gathering Tempest on the back burner as something we might want to proc into if something down the road isn't as good. That being said, Tier 3 we have Smite, which basically lets you do a powerful fire and shock damage blast every 12 seconds while you're in the air, and although it has a small area of effect, it deals more damage the more Maelstrom stacks you have, which if you have a good shock or incendiary weapon, you should get a lot of Maelstrom stacks. I like this. Unrelenting is another skill you have, which is a kill skill that killing an enemy increases your weapon swap speed and fire rate for each stack of Maelstrom. This goes together well with Storm Weaving. So you may want to proc into this, again, if nothing else in these lower tiers suits you. Zeus's Rage is a really cool ability that I'm definitely going to want, because if you throw the Aspis, you deal fire and lightning at the storm will be produced where the Aspis is hit. This procs additionally to Prismatic Aegis. So if you're just fighting enemies, you're doing explosive or corrosion or freeze damage, and you're worried that you won't be able to get that fire or shock, you already have it here. The damage of the storm increases based on the amount of damage absorbed by the Aegis, which means if you're taking fire damage, you'll have the fire damage of the Prismatic Aegis plus Zeus's Rage. I really like this idea, so I'm just going to proc into that, though. And also, because the damage increases based on the damage absorbed, you don't even have to worry about it falling off late game, because the higher your difficulty, the stronger enemies will get, which means Zeus's Rage will deal more damage. Elemental Barrage is one of the other abilities in Tier 4, which when Storm Weaving is active, your weapons have a chance to not consume ammo. Which, remember, activating Storm Weaving lasts for 9 seconds. So 9 seconds after swapping a weapon, you have a chance to not consume ammo. And this chance is improved even more for when you have Maelstrom stacks. This is compared to Superconductor, which basically adds on electrical damage when you hit someone with your Aspis. When it occurs, you also gain Maelstrom stacks. Keep in mind that the more Maelstrom stacks you have, though, the faster they will decay. Well, I really like the idea of dealing more shock. You have to keep in mind that you're going to be dealing shock anyway with the Fire and Lightning Storm, or possibly with Smite, or you may even absorb shock with Prismatic Aegis. So because of that, I'm going to be putting points instead into Elemental Barrage. If there's an extra point, I'll put a 5th point in it, but for now there's a 24% chance during these 9 seconds to not consume ammo. I think that's pretty good. And since Maelstrom seems to be fairly easy to obtain, you'll gain 0.8%, I say 0.08% per stack. Based on how low this percent is, because at rank 5 it's 0.1% per stack, I think it's going to be really easy to gain these Maelstrom stacks. And especially since it doesn't say what the cap is, I think you can just get crazy amounts of Maelstrom. For our tier 5, we have Overload and Flash Freeze. Flash Freeze is whenever you freeze an enemy, you'll gain Flash Freeze, which will prevent you from gaining or losing Maelstrom stacks. Not being able to gain Maelstrom stacks I don't really like, but not losing them is better. Flash Freeze only lasts for 5 seconds though at rank 5. However, let's compare this to Overload. When you kill an enemy who is electrocuted or burning, there is a chance for this status effect to chain to nearby enemies. This is amazing. When it occurs, you gain bonus Maelstrom stacks, and this bonus is gained twice if the target is both burning and electrocuted. Boom. Rank 1, this gives you 20 stacks, and it has a 9% chance to spread. If you don't like this ability, just the fact that you can automatically gain 20 stacks, it's awesome. You have a 9% chance of gaining 20 maelstrom stacks just from killing an enemy with, the elements that you're building a tree on. So you could put 4 more points into Flash Freeze, or 4 points into Unrelenting, 4 points into Tempest, or 4 points into Superconductor. It doesn't matter, because even just 1 point makes this a worthwhile skill. That being said, however, I'm going to be putting 5 points in it because that gives us a 45% chance to spread elements. This is super awesome! Last off, we have Hades Shackles. It's not a super great capstone in my opinion, but when you do your slam, which is a new mechanic for pre-sequel, you link to nearby enemies and with a shock tether, which deals electric damage to them. This lasts for only 3 seconds, but has a 15-second cooldown. It's pretty cool. If you lose line of sight on your target, the tether's broken, and any enemies that are still tethered at the end of the duration of 3 seconds, or who die while being tethered, release an incendiary nova. Plus, you gain maelstrom stacks for each enemy affected by the nova. It has a cooldown, again, of only 15 seconds, but still, considering how easy it is to just go around slamming people, this will work really well. Especially considering all the extra shock and BS you're doing. It's pretty cool. Though I don't know how well it'll scale late game. Considering it seems like the actual shock damage doesn't say how it scales, so I would assume that it's good in earlier periods of the game, but as you get to higher levels, it may fall off. That being said, there's 3 points remaining, so I'm going to put another point in Elemental Barrage, giving us a 30% chance. And let's see, what else here? I will put 2 points, I guess, in Vanguard, just because I need a place to put them, which will just give health regeneration. It'll just give you the bonus health regeneration. I don't know how good it'll be, but the health regeneration increases as the Aspis absorbs damage, so worst case scenario, you can always just put it in 2 points of something else. Like I said, I'm going to be doing now a Phalanx and Xiphos tree. However, because this video has gone on for a while, I think I'm going to make it a 2-parter. So this is my Phalanx and Saronic Storm ability tree. I hope this was helpful in helping you decide. Until next time, thanks for watching.